Hello and welcome to Drilling Insight. I'm Jeremy Verduzco, host and editor of National Driller magazine. I'm joined today by drilling trainer, National Driller writer, and co-host Brock Yorty. Welcome, Brock.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. It's getting chillier up here in Michigan, so we're thickening our skin. Joining us today is Dr. Thomas Herbert. Thanks for being on the show, Tom.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Herbert is co-founder and vice president of Lample Herbert Consultants Incorporated in Tallahassee, Florida. He's a licensed professional geologist in a handful of states and has more than 50 years of experience in geology, resource management, and legislative and regulatory topics. He also contributes to Florida State University courses on topics related to geologic hazards and petroleum geology. And Dr. Herbert and his partner, Dr. Linda Lample, started Lample Herbert Consultants 42 years ago. The LHC focus has been on water and was summed up by his partner Linda as, quote, "Water is in perpetuity an action item on the agenda of humankind," unquote. So again, welcome, Tom. Let's jump into our usual first opening question. Now, did you choose this industry or did the industry choose you?
I chose it. My father and my grandfather on his side, my dad's side, were both mining engineers. So by the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I was dealing with rocks and mining equipment and things like that. And then when I was 5 years old, my dad built a house outside of Moline, Illinois, where I grew up, and a couple of acres, and he hired a well driller that had an old cable tool rig. I was 5 years old, and I spent 5 weeks sitting on a nail keg with my lunch, watching him cable tool a 265-foot well. And, that was it. From then on, I was interested in geology. I was lucky enough, I went to college at Michigan State. Here you can see the Sparty. And majored in geology and master's in geology. And then I went on for a PhD in College of Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Resource Development, which was economics and law and how you put a deal together, basically. I worked with the Highway Department in Michigan, and I was given a mobile B-52 soil auger rig when I was in 1967, and I was the crew chief for that. I ran it, signed people's timesheets, and then the crew taught me how to drill. And then I came to Florida. I continued on down here, doing a lot of environmental drilling and rock mining evaluations, and then we got into oil drilling, other things. But basically, it was my own path in because I really love watching drills run and looking at samples.
That's a great history. I love the fact that you got to watch a cable tool and it kind of just got into your blood. We always hear stories like that. From your standpoint, Dr. Herbert, and you've been on drill rigs, and you also have went through the academic levels up to a doctor. What does a successful working relationship look like between a driller and a geologist? How can they work better together?
It's people skills. It's going in and from the driller standpoint, you walk in and you've got a degree. You're the college kid. You don't have the same skill set that they do. From the academic side, you get a kid that comes out that's got a degree and they think they know a lot, and they really don't know anything. It's blank slate, and they have to learn. And what I was lucky enough that I had two guys who were World War II veterans that were 20, 25 years older than I was. I'd signed their timesheets. They taught me the skills of the trade. I signed their timesheets, but they gave me the best skill I had, which was what they called walking around skills, which is just learning how to do things. Can you tear apart a motor? Can you fix? Can you splice lines? Whatever. Can you weld? Those are all things that are very important. Not necessarily in your academics toolkit, but they're important when you start a job and you start that geology driller relationship, and it grows. You know, you spend 4 years riding in the truck with the guys. You know them, you trust them on the location. You have a briefing before you start, and you get on the same page. You tell them what you think the geology is. Then you take the lessons as they pull the levers and feel the differences in the rig vibration and the penetration rate and all that. And they'll tell you what you're in. And you know, it's a symbiotic relationship. You got to maintain it, and it takes personal skills. You know, you'll go out there and get tested and hazed. If you know, the college kid will come out. I passed it in flying colors because the guy said, "Hey, can you move that truck?" It was a big stake rack truck, tandem, you know, big heavy thing. I said, "Hey, Doc or Tom, go move that, will you?" I got in and drove it, and they said, "Well, how'd you learn how to do that?" I said, "Well, you didn't know, but I got a CDL." "Where'd you get the CDL?" I said, "I drove a truck for Railway Express Company, so in my summer job." So it just, you know, you gotta get in, and it's people skills. It's like locker room stuff. You got to get in and get comfortable with each other, and you know that the other guy's doing his job, you're doing your job, you're not walking over the top of them. That's basically it.
So getting to drill in Michigan with a mobile drill, great company. I grew up drilling in Michigan. Wasn't quite the party animal to go to Michigan State, but you know, I'm now in the
party school is Michigan. Come on.
So you know, I'm now down in the Southeast also. Give our audience, a snapshot of the drilling conditions you've seen between being in the good old Mitten State and now coming down to Florida and spending your time down here.
Well, I had 5 years traveling the Mitten, including the what they called the Upper Peculiar, which is the Upper Peninsula. And we toted that rig all over the place. So we were doing a lot of soil testing, and then we moved quickly into early stages of environmental monitoring because the highway department was putting a lot of salt on the roads, and it was doing some damage to neighboring water wells. The issue is up there, there's a lot of shallow wells, anywhere from 15 to 100 feet. Most of them are in the glacial materials, which can be glacial tills with big boulders in them and a lot of clay. And then you got areas that are glacial stream channels and outwash or sand and gravel out in front, which are incredible aquifers. They produce a huge amount of water.
Yeah.
Drilling up there was tough. We had to, I learned how to thaw a drilling rig that was in Gaylord, Michigan. When it was 10 degrees out and the rig had frozen up, we had to put burn barrels around the rig to heat it up so we could get drilled. But, moving to Florida, geology is different. We have, it's different from north to south. You get in the Panhandle, you get a lot of deep sands. You've got deep freshwater aquifers in sand and gravel. And you go from Tallahassee south, you're more in the limestone. You're in the what's called in the Florida Aquifer system. You get down, which is a little bit of clay and sand at the top, and then you're into alternating limestones, dolomites. And then superimposed on that is you have karst conditions, which is cave development. And then you've had a lot of fracturing of that rock. So when you look at the aquifer characteristics, you're drilling through pretty dense limestone or dolomite, then you'll get into fracture systems and cave systems, and it's quite different. And the Florida Aquifer system was named 55 years ago. It was originally called the Florida Aquifer, and it's really a system because there's a whole shopping list of different aquifer and formation names that go into it. Now it's pretty much the upper, middle, and lower. The upper is where most of the fresh water is coming from right now. The middle zone, the middle Floridan, is where we're seeing the future, which is it's brackish water. You're seeing deeper wells into the Avon Park Formation, which is a fractured limestone. It's well confined, and all these are under pressure also. So they're all artesian systems, and you're going to be treating that with RO processing for fresh water. Central Florida is going crazy down there right now because they got people piling in from up north, learning to work remotely like we are right now, but they're piling in, and there's going to be 30 million people down there pretty quick. The other main component is back when a guy named Jerry Parker was with the USGS. He named the Florida an aquifer. And if you are in any meetings with the environmental groups, you know, you get a pitter patter that, oh my God, this is the Florida aquifer, it's sacred, you got to protect it. The problem was when Jerry named it, the middle zone is brackish water, 15,000 parts chlorides. You get below in the lower zone, it's 1.3 times seawater strength. So it's up around 40,000 parts TDS. That's also used as a disposal zone. So if you've got class 1, class 2, class 5 UIC wells, they're going to be down in that bowl. It's called the boulder zone because it's just a cave system and fracture system. And that's where the water is being put right now.
So staying on Florida for a moment, as you mentioned, there could be, 30 million people in the state pretty quick. I mean, 10 years or so is really right around the corner. Now, that's a lot of groundwater demand. Are the aquifers you're talking about, the supplies you're talking about, are they up to it? And if not, what other tools can we use to meet that supply?
Well, the fresh water is being stretched. The stuff in the upper Florida is being stretched. One of the problems with the upper Florida is we've got abundant freshwater springs. A lot of the springs, a lot of that shallow water is being impaired with contaminants. We've got a lot of agriculture. We've got cattle grazing, feedlots. We've got chicken facilities, and we've got about 500,000 septic tanks in Florida in the sandier soils, and that stuff the nutrient levels have increased over time. In my lifetime, in 47 years.
Now this is the kind of phosphorus and things like that they worry about in the Everglades and such as well, correct?
Right. The Everglades has been managed since 1947. The Army Corps of Engineers stepped in and started building canals, and actually before that, but the main emphasis started in 47. In the 70s, we started a water management district system, which I participated in when I worked in the state legislature. And it created a management system. It was anticipating the day when we have 30 million, except when I worked in the legislature in 74, we had 6 million people in the state, and we were predicting, what are we going to do when we have 10 million? Well, right now we're almost 23 million, and the University of Florida has an economic projection, and it's going to be 30 million by 2030. Central Florida, around Lakeland, Orlando, between Tampa and Daytona, and that whole I-4 corridor, north and south, you've got the villages, which were guys exported down from Traverse City, Michigan, up in that area. They came down and said, "Oh, look at this! We're going to build this great thing," and they did. There's a huge number of people, and it's a good retiree center, but it's infilling, and other people are coming down there, and it's getting gridlock. We're looking at new highways. We're looking at all this. But from the water standpoint, you've got the water management districts, and you've got water authorities in Tampa and Orlando, utilities and other groups who are looking out in advance. Now, Brock's company is looking at wells that are test wells. They're on the front edge of the monitoring and understanding of that middle Floridan. Yeah. You got people looking at the RO systems, how to improve the efficiency on those. And then, the concentrate, after they run it through the RO, that concentrate's going right back down in the lower Florida and into the boulder zone. So there's this complex system that is being understood. The water districts have done a lot to understand it. The U.S. Geological Survey has done a lot. The State Geological Survey has done a lot. There's a lot of research going on, and pretty much everybody's mashed the buttons, realizing that it's going to be interesting. The term water management comes up, and that's what we're doing. we're not mining the aquifers like in Texas and other places and out west, where it's or in the Middle East where it's a one-way street and it doesn't recharge. We're getting a lot of recharge here. We get 20 inches of recharge every year, but we're using a lot as well.
So, if we zoom out from Florida, we look at the water crisis going on in California, Latin America, you look at Chile or Venezuela to South Africa, all of these 0 day or day zero events happening of water rationing. What changes do you think we're going to see, Doc? And what regulatory factors do you think are going to come in from these water shortages, these dense populations hitting one section and stressing out aquifers?
Well, California jumped in early, it's a legal component. California, they have what's called the appropriation doctrine, where people can literally claim the water, own it, and have first right of use of it, to the detriment of people downstream. It works as well for claiming groundwater recovery too. But California started diverting water from the Colorado River back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and folks took them to court and went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was settled that they could take the water. But they have to manage it. They have a fairly wasteful system with the agriculture. So that's the ownership of the water is critical. In Florida, we have, in the eastern United States, we have the riparian doctrine, which is sort of a reasonable use. If it's on your property, you can use it to a reasonable extent. In the early 70s, the water districts were created because we moved into a kind of a limited permitting system. It was called consumptive use permitting, or CUPs or CUPs. And the idea was when you start to stress the aquifer system or the water system, then the regulatory agency steps in and issues allocation permits for the water, which is good in theory. I was the naive 30-year-old scientist, geologist, when we did this in 1974 and 5. And I thought, oh yeah, this is going to work. Well, what happened? For 30 years, we developed a good informational base on the geologists and hydrologists who were working the system. They understood it like, the back seat of their car, and they were able to do things. Unfortunately, over the years, that has drifted as more and more political issues have come in, and the consumptive permit use reviews take the science into account, but they also take a political component in there. And anytime you're doing that, you're pushing the system a little bit out of the norm, and we're gonna end up having to resolve that at some point. It gets back to management. It gets back to understanding how much water you really need. You're seeing a lot more you're moving a lot away from golf courses, or not watering the golf courses as much. You've gone to, in agriculture, you've gone to root zone irrigation rather than pivots and stuff like that. So there's our Institute of Food and Agricultural Science at the University of Florida is doing a lot on irrigation and water management in the irrigation. Back in the 70s, we used to laugh that water management was putting a couple of bricks in your toilet, so you didn't in the toilet tank, so you didn't use quite as much water. But it's gone a lot farther than that right now. We got to do some major infrastructure, and we got to really understand where it's coming from. We got to monitor the climate issues and all this other stuff to come up with the answers.
Okay. So I remember that as kids, putting bricks in our toilet,
Yeah.
Got to lower that flow a little bit.
Yeah.
So, that may not be an ideal tool, but are there underused tools out there for, I guess, equitable or a smart allocation of water? Are there ideas out there that might work, but people think maybe, we're not going to try that, it's too hard, or, we're not going to get buy-in, but you think will work?
I think they'll work. I think it's incumbent on the geologists and hydrogeologists to really educate. I've been active in the American Institute of Professional Geologists, the Florida Geology Group, and I'm active with the Florida Groundwater Association. What we have to do is take every opportunity to explain water to people who don't understand it. Many people think that groundwater is a river running under the ground. Well, in some cases in Florida it is, but it's a very, very special case. Most of it's, it's pore water and it's connected and you get processing permeability and all that. But it's just understanding how water occurs, how it moves, how we remove it, how we protect it. We've had a lot of people complaining about drilling through the upper Floridan zone, for oil wells or disposal wells. And I have to explain to them, well, there's 3 casing strings and about a foot of cement that's protecting you. So it's not something that's an open hole that you're going to commingle things going up and down the borehole. Yeah. So there's a lot of things from an engineering technical standpoint, but the important thing is communication with the people who are out there in meetings. I've given countless talks to various groups. The key thing, and we've got meetings this week with the Florida legislature, with the Groundwater Association, the key thing is that the decision makers need to understand from whence we have come with all this water use and all these things that we've built around handling water and regulating water. How do we go forward from here? It's key that folks like myself and others interact with the legislative groups to let them know, because they have the dollars, they allocate the dollars and the water management districts are in a pretty good shape because they have their own independent tax based, which is an ad valorem tax that they can gather money, which is part of the thing. And when you're in water management, you're building things, you're drilling things, you're piping, you're treating, you're doing all these things that are part of management, but it takes dollars, it takes front end money to get into that, and then you can set up a tax system to carry it forward in time, and all of that stuff has to be conceptualized, understood, and at some juncture, when somebody comes in and they don't understand it and they're in a key role politically, they can just throw a wrench in it. And, hey, why are we doing this? Let's do something else. Well, guys, we've been doing this for 50 years, 60 years, and this is why we got to do it. We're providing water for the people in the state of Florida.
So I've been to college, I studied some geology. I drank a lot of craft beer. I know if I can smash a rock or not smash a rock, if it's going to be reactive or not reactive. But as a driller, for the drillers out there, what's a good go-to resource for them to be better at understanding their geology? Where can we learn geology as a tribal industry that can help us get better logs and whatnot so that we can be better?
Well, a lot of the smaller companies don't have the ability to have an extra geology hand on the crew. What I suggest, if the guys are interested and management is interested, and if you're going into a new area, if you've drilled an area like in Michigan, if you've drilled Kalamazoo County your whole life, you know it. You don't have to, you don't have to go to the books on that. But if you're going to a new area, if you're a company that's moving around the country, you go in and all states have a geological survey. They usually have a groundwater or surface water section that is well schooled. In Florida, we have the water districts. You have the U.S. Geological Survey. They have a water resources component. You can reach out to these groups and get them to come by. They'll give you a quick seminar that's applied, not the airy, academic stuff. And you say, tell me what the Upper Swanee limestone looks like. Well, it looks like this. And here's the confining unit. Here's the kind of artesian pressures you're likely to find. Here's the nutrients. It's got salt water. It's got this, whatever it is. They'll give you a capsulization of that in a one-on-one or a small group, and then the guys can ask questions, and then they got a call back. They're on the rig and it's drilling. They run into something strange. He said, "Hey, I ran into this chert lens or something. What, you didn't tell me about this." "Oh yeah, well the Swanee's got chert lenses in it. We forgot to tell you." But there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you can get just by having a half a dozen phone numbers in your cell phone, and having the companies encourage the drillers to get back to their management, and somebody in management can make the call and put the guys together. I know with the Florida Geological Survey and the water districts, if you call them up and say, "I got a problem, I'm not understanding this," they'll send an inspector, they'll send one of the geologists or hydrogeos from the office, and they'll come out there and walk you through it, stay with you for a day. I mean, that's what these organizations are set up for, you know, public service, health, safety, welfare, and they, you know, they need to be, they need to go out and help people, and they will. I've always seen them, you know, I call them if I don't know if something's particular, but yeah, that's the way I would handle it.
So I got one more question, shifting gears out of this. You teach at Florida State. I have the pleasure of working with 3 of your students. And two-part question. You develop these smart, troubleshooting, excited about drilling students. How do you get them so excited about drilling? And the second piece, what are you doing to keep everybody excited now that we're doing virtual learning and whatnot?
We're working on both those things. Over the years, I really enjoyed teaching. The people who are interested in doing things, they self-select. People self-select for geology because they like to wear plaid shirts and boots. And they will come into the class. They're the people that sit down, and I've had several females and males both, but they'll sit there and they will look at you, and you can tell that there's an inner drive. And when there's that inner drive, you just start pitching them softballs, and they pick up on it. And then throughout the classes, I talk about the toolkit that they're putting together, which is their mental toolkit of things that they're going to use when they go out. And I tell them that there is a mechanical toolkit that they'll use once they get out, whether it's a flow meter or a drilling rig or whatever it is, they will be involved in something gathering geologic data. In terms of the learning online, we're at Florida State, we're into Zoom classes through the first few weeks of next semester. I've got 2 classes. I teach geologic hazards, and there's either evening classes, geologic hazards, and a course called Geoscience and Energy. And what we are doing is trying to make the classes not so much the old-time geology classes like we used to have, where you had a lot of book learning and, you know, beating on rocks and things like that. What we're doing now is my prop is my cell phone here, which is we're trying to do more learning off of the devices that the young people they're comfortable using. So what we are doing is going out and getting topic related articles. This podcast here would be something perhaps that we would just link them to them. So when they're walking down doing what they do all the time, and I've got grandkids and kids that do that myself, so I understand it, but they are learning. My thing is learning. Continue. You're never going to stop learning. And it's rather than the labs looking at rocks and thin sections and doing this and that, doing chemistry experiments. No, it's more read this. We'll talk about it. And then when my exit speech has been in the last class or two is I give them a little 1-day pep talk on what they're going to do. I tell them about my CDL driving and being hazed by the drillers. And I said, you're probably going to go out, if you really want to do geology, you're going to be out working in the field. Where's the field job? You're going to drills. Drills give you the best early look at what is in the subsurface. That's exciting. You learn it. Then you move on. By year 5, you'll be management. And by year 10, you'll probably be owning your own company, something like that. But you have to start somewhere. The main thing is the walking around skills. Can you learn? Starting on a drill rig is a good thing to do. Learning the mechanics, learning the lingo, learning to deal with people. People is a critical thing. My partner, Linda, is an anthropologist with a PhD in communication research. All of our license tags on our vehicles say people because that's what it is. It's the people side of everything. The science and engineering, I tell people, is about 10% of what we do. And it's kind of plug and chug. And the rest of it's dealing with clients and people and neighbors and, on and on and on. So it's a world of human, it's a human world, and we're doing science and engineering in the middle of that.
Okay, well, I like that. Keep it to the fundamentals, keep it with the people skills, and you'll go far. So with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Thanks again, Doc. I really was fascinated to hear some of your thoughts on the scarcity issues you're dealing with down in Florida. We don't, up here in Michigan, we don't think about that so much because we're just surrounded by it, surrounded by fresh water. But obviously Florida has a lot more people, so it's something that's going to have to be managed a lot more closely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What do you think, Brock? What did you find interesting?
I really enjoyed the idea of getting on the back of the rig and merging with the driller and learning and being that partnership, that cohesive partnership. And also, as I've gotten to work down here in Florida in the last 15 months, I realized so the Michigan aquifer is like a normal aquifer, and the Floridian aquifer is just basically Florida man. So now I understand it.
Well, a lot of it's kind of like the old Star Trek, where it's sort of a Vulcan mind meld between the driller and the geologist. It's you've got to get there. Otherwise, it ends up a divisive show and tell thing where the driller's going to show the college kid that he knows what's right, and college kid's going to be critiquing it all the way through. So it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. You get a good team. When I go out and hire a drill, I've probably drilled more holes in the state than anybody else because we've done so many seismic shot holes, somewhere on the order of 30,000 100-foot holes with many different types of rigs. And I've worked with a lot of crews. And once you get that confidence that you know what you're doing, they know what they're doing, you're not going to jerk them around and, tell them what to do. Just, figure out what they're doing. They may not call the formation the same thing you would, but that's okay. You learn what they're calling it and you deal with it.
Yeah. And eventually you're both speaking the same language. So
up in Kalamazoo County, Michigan, they used to call fine gravel pea dirt. And it took me a long time to figure out from a college boy what in the world they were talking about with pea dirt, but it was number 4 3/8 mesh gravel. That's what it was. But you found a lot of it up there and in those glacial materials.
Well, I don't know about those fancy terms you're using, but pea dirt.
Yeah, pea dirt.
We just find mutual respect up in Kalamazoo over good beer.
There you go.
I did a lot of work in Kalamazoo County. I'm been there and done it.
Yep. Good water there for it. So,
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again to Dr. Thomas Herbert. Where can the audience find out more about you?
On our website at lampleherbert.com. Just put it in and we come up where the first one's popping up. We've got a brand new website. It's been up about 2 months and tells people what we do. We do all kinds of consulting work, and it's just Lample, L-A-M-P-L, Herbert Consultants, and or do my name, Thomas Herbert, and it pops up. You can get to us pretty quick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you can find fresh episodes of our show on our website or on Apple Podcasts every other week. Search Drilling Insight and hit subscribe, and visit nationaldriller.com for the latest industry news and views. And don't forget to follow us on the usual social media channels. So until next time, this is Drilling Insight.